tools that are required. Tools required for smart contracts, for smart contract deployment. So the first tool required is blockchain network. I told you there is main network, blockchain network. So there is a main network and there are some test networks. Test networks, there is actually Goerli, which I'm going to use. This I'm going to use, and there is Cephalia. You can see this once we use the tool. So this is these are required, and from where we get this. So this actually we get it from a website. There will be a website for this which is called as Infura. So I'm going to use Infura to have a network, and that network is Infura, but the network account is maintained in MetaMask. So we are going to use all these things. So this is blockchain network, and we'll have all networks for our disposal. You can use Main, Goerli, Cephalia, whichever network you want, but you can see the details from Main, but you cannot do any transaction unless you have Ethers. So if you have Ethers, the same contract, whatever we are creating can be deployed in Main, but I'm going to connect with Main and just get some details if possible. Otherwise, what we are doing is we are using a network called Goerli, which is a test network, and there we are doing it. So the second tool along with the network, the second very important tool is wallet. So wallet is required because you require accounts, external account, and also the contract account. So all these accounts are maintained in a wallet, and even the Ethers, how much Ethers for each network you have, that will be maintained by MetaMask. So we are going to use the MetaMask. So the first tool we are going to use is Infura. Infura for network. And the second tool we are going to use is MetaMask, that is for wallet. So this is one more thing. Then for the next thing, what we required is a tool to buy Ethers. Buy Ethers. So here we are going to buy Ethers, only dummy Ethers, not real Ethers. So demo the same technique is applicable to buy the real Ethers, but the cost involved, I think we have to give in dollars, not in rupees. So you have to give in dollars, then only you can buy Ethers. So the dummy Ethers, buy Ethers, which are dummy. There are some networks. Suppose it depends upon what network you are using. So if we're using Goerli, like Geo Orly, this is the network. Then this network has another tool called Facet. Goerli Facet. Suppose if it is main network, main network, it is no Facet. For test networks, there are facets present. So what this Facet does is they allow you to buy the Ethers. They allow you to buy the Ethers. So this is so we require the third tool. The third tool what we require is the Facet, which depends upon what network you are using. If you are using Goerli, you require Goerli Facet. If you are using Cephalia, you have to use Cephalia Facet, and so on. This is the third tool what we require. Next, when you take the fourth tool, what we require is Solidity language. So Solidity language. So it is very simple language. So it's not a tool, it's a language. So we should know the syntaxes, that's all. But it's we are going to have very simple syntax. And for testing Solidity, we require IDE for testing. This is optional. Testing, it is not required to test, but if you test in a IDE, only if it is perfectly okay, then you can use the Python to deploy it. But if you this step is not required, but if you use the Solidity code directly in Python, suppose there are problems in the code, it is very, very difficult to know. So before we deploy the Solidity code with Python, it is better to use some IDE and ensure that the code is correct. So as I told you, we are going to use Remix. This is the fifth tool, but Solidity, there is nothing we use it. It is directly we are writing the code. You cannot say it as a tool, so I can remove this. So the fourth tool is Remix, which is online IDE. Nowadays, for every language, there are online IDEs. So I'm going to use online IDE, online Remix, to test the Solidity, even though this is optional. This step is optional. It is not required, but it is always better if you do this to ensure that you will not have any problems while it is deployed in the Python. So by the time you reach the Python for deployment, the Solidity code should be foolproof, means there should not be any logical or syntactic errors in the Solidity code. Then it will be easy. But you can directly do it. Suppose once you are comfortable with Solidity, you are good at the language, then you can skip the fourth tool IDE. But if you do it, it is always good. Then the sixth tool is Web3 module, because Web3 is the one which allows you to use Python to compile Solidity and do something with the Solidity. So Web3 module, this needs to be installed in Python. So this is another tool, and final tool is IDE for developing the Python application. So IDE for Python, and you can use any IDE for Python, even you can use IDLE, but what I'm going to use is I'm going to use Google Colab. So we require 6 kind of tools. So I'm using Google Colab here. So these are the IDEs we required. So we require the network, wallet, faucet to buy the ethers, then IDE for testing the Solidity, Web3 module to write code in Python, and IDE for Python, which is Google Colab. I am using Google Colab is very convenient for writing Python code, and it is easy. If you have not used it, you'll understand how useful Google Colab is, even not necessarily for blockchain. It is mainly meant for data science or data science or machine learning related projects. It's very, very useful. So Google Colab is one very popular IDE for Java. So